In yesterday's video, we met the wild and fantastic beasts of the Extremist Chamber. We saw Stormcast Eternals and beasts combined to make a devastating mobile assault unit. Today will be a similar examination of a chamber that also uses more wild beasts, but in a very different way. This is the Vanguard Chamber, also known as the Vanguard Auxiliary Chamber, I just shortened it, but they act as the eyes and ears of Sigmar's generals. They are scouts, assassins, rangers, and guerrilla warfare masters. Their job is to locate and exploit enemy weaknesses amongst the endless battlefields that the Stormcast Eternals find themselves on. When an enemy sets to fight against the Stormcast Eternals, they will quickly find that their backline has been eroded away, and that is because they are being harassed and harried by the Vanguard Chamber. And where other chambers represent strength in very clear ways like physical damage, martial prowess, being able to shoot magic, massed shooting in like the Judicators, Vanguard really represents strength in guile and subterfuge and concealment and hit and run tactics, things that don't necessarily lend themselves to martial pride like others do. Now, in their first life, their lives as mortals, these were very wild men and women. They lived in the woods, they were survivalists, lived by setting traps and knowing their environments. And their story of ascension is very different from other Stormcast Eternals because in life, other heroes, like say Vandus Hammerhand, all these other characters that we know, they were heroes who cried Sigmar's name near their death, right? They asked him for strength or devoted their actions to him, those kinds of things. But these seem like they were likely very solemn worshippers. They're in the woods, typically alone or in very small tribes. Maybe they do have some personal worship of Sigmar, but it's not the same as like bellowing his name as they strike down a Chaos Lord. And they fought Chaos in their own way to the best of their ability, meaning they set traps, hunted them, and because of this, all of these warriors in the Vanguard Chamber are bright and very self-sufficient. And that's a thing I want to emphasize with this video. They're very self-sufficient. This leads to a very loose command structure, because they are designed to be more autonomous and fluid than any other force in the Stormcast Eternal army. It's more like oversight rather than direct command. In theory, a storm host can have any number of Vanguard Auxiliary Chambers, but that number had a kind of a hard cap put on it by some of the lords of the storm hosts so that the troops in these chambers don't become basic battle line options. They need to be special, they need to be different. And that kind of handoff approach means that a set of Vanguard can be dispatched, assess their mission, think critically about how best to achieve it, fluidly create a plan to execute it, and get the job done without needing this kind of rigid command structure in place. For example, let's say we're trying to take down a fortress or open the gate to it at least so the main forces can go in. They can drop in there, locate the best way to get to the fortress without being noticed, inside of it, execute what needs to be done, open the gate, all on their own without having to talk to anyone else. They can be out in the wild, kind of scoping out the terrain, getting to know the area, hunting out chaos wherever it is. For long periods of time, these guys are dispatched almost independently. And so with that out of the way, I want to talk about some of the really great units that come along with this chamber. Starting with the Lord Aquilors. These are the leaders of the chamber, and they are given matchless autonomy. Where they once fought in the shadows, they now bring open attacks against the Chaos forces. So instead of like subterfuge and guile, now it's like guerrilla warfare. They're loud, they smash hard, and they get out of there. And where most heroes stand out for their battle prowess, these Lord Aquilors stand out for their intelligence and cunning. They are masters of guerrilla warfare and guerrilla campaigns. They're given free range to choose their targets, and even Sigmar doesn't know where all of them are. And when they go to war, they frequently ride a Griff Charger to get that speed and maneuverability that the army depends on. So let's say Sigmar said to a Lord Aquilor, I want you to secure this part of Guran. He's going to dispatch the Vanguard Chamber over there, and they're going to have autonomy on, okay, we want to secure it. What does that mean? Does that mean destroying reinforcement lines? Does it mean redirecting a river to flood their camp? I mean, they can do whatever needs to be done to achieve that mission, but there's so much freedom in that order. So this is really the intelligence base that makes that possible. Next up are the Vanguard Raptors, and they really represent the first wind of a coming hurricane. These are the dedicated snipers and marksmen of the army, and they make their presence known through devastating volleys. And in their life of devotion, they become solely set on using a single type of weapon. If they battle up close and support the army all the way into the enemy, they're going to use the crossbows. This allows them to unleash devastating volleys up close and personal. However, some units of Vanguard Raptors support the army by sniping out prime targets from the backline. These are your snipers using the long strike crossbows. Now, they're often seen in the presence of an Aetherwing flock, and some folks believe that the Aetherwings really do somehow, through arcane magics, assist their accuracy. Next up are the Vanguard Hunters, and they function as the elite infantry of the Vanguard Chambers. Most of them were awarded this status after a reforging. They are battle-hardened, they prove that they can handle the demands that being a Stormcast Eternal has on them, but they also have this unique skill set that makes them perfect for independent combat, independent thinking, and a fluid command structure. They are tactically flexible warriors that really use terrain to their advantage. And it's easy to think of them as being sneaky and stealthy, but they're more like brutal guerrilla warfare folks. Loud, devastating strikes on the enemy, and then they're just gone, so they can't get pinned down in a protracted battle. Now, more than any other Vanguard unit, they spend longer in the theater of war getting to know the area. It's really their primary mission to understand the battlefield and use that against the enemy. Part of their power comes from a unique artifact called the Astral Compass, developed by the Collegiate Arcane to navigate the realms. In the hands of these kinds of warriors who are so attuned to how nature and the landscape can be used as a weapon, it is devastating, because they can hit the enemy on an unprepared flank and then slink away, and they always know exactly where they're going and how to get to where they need to be to catch people unaware. And last up are the Vanguard Paladins. These are masters of high-speed assault, and imagine a hunter riding a lightning-fast steed. That's the Griff Charger, is the steed they're riding. It's a hulking beast with incredible abilities. Really what they can do is kind of blink in between reality. Imagine like if you made a little wormhole and your steed just shot straight through it. With that, they can soar across the battlefield in an instant. And that functionally means they can hit one flank really hard, devastate it, and then almost teleport, they call it going through the winds etheric, to the other side of the battle, to the complete other flank of the enemy, and hit that side before the first side has even hit the ground with their death. Absolutely lightning fast. How do you defend against that? Now, it is also noted here that bonding with a Griff Charger is no easy feat. There seems to be more than one way to do it, but the two real ones that the battle tome goes into is either at some point a Griff Charger naturally finds a Stormcast and comes to defend him in a fight, meaning he sees a Stormcast, hates chaos, and he decides to join in the fight as well. Or if the two of them go on a hunt together. After this bonding happens, and to kind of solidify the relationship, the Griff Charger lets the rider clean him basically of blood and debris from any kind of like shredded bits of Chaos Warrior that are all over him. And that kind of acts as a ritual of bonding to bring the two together. Again, this is very important because when you see Stormcast riding mounts, they really act as a singular unit in all these stories. It's like the beasts they choose are hyper intelligent almost always, and their minds just work together like two hemispheres of a brain. Now, what I love about this chamber, just kind of stepping back here, is they really are the part of Stormcast Eternals that focuses on movement more than anything else. In terms of gameplay, I love the fact that they can blink around the battlefield almost at will. Their rules very much accurately represent their lore in terms of being able to work autonomously. They don't need a lot of buffs in-game, and also the movement shenanigans of the Vanguard Paladins just rolling a bucket of dice and then being able to zip across the board that much in distance. So I think really in terms of bringing lore to the tabletop, they are a fantastic unit, or chamber rather. And while they don't seem to have a direct reason for being unleashed, meaning we saw yesterday with the Extremist Chamber being a direct response to larger beasts and demons coming out, and of course the Sacrosanct Chamber was a direct response to the events going on in Shyish. They don't really have a direct response to something, but I think they add an element to the army that wasn't there before, and I really enjoy that. I prefer to be kind of fast and dodgy, and this allows people who also enjoy that to get into Stormcast Eternals, which is a very easy army to dive into and not give up their preferred playstyle. And that, friends, is everything about the Vanguard Auxiliary Chambers. And with that, we conclude Stormcast Eternal Weeks. And we're going to be talking about them a lot as the Soul Wars campaign kind of unfolds and we get to see new units dropped, new story arcs for all these great characters. If you haven't read it yet, Soul Wars by Josh Reynolds is a fantastic book. I cannot highly recommend it enough. If you enjoyed this week of videos, go ahead and give this video a subscribe and a like if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons over on Patreon. All patrons are able to direct the course of the show by voting on what kind of content we focus on next, and patrons of a certain level are entered always into raffles to win the battle tomes that I review. I don't keep any of this stuff, I get it, review it, and then send it right off to you folks because I'm so appreciative of all the support that you give me. Also, I have no room for it. And if you can't give right now, that's completely fine. I'm just so glad you joined me for this video today, and look forward to seeing you in next week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.